Okay, so in the last video, I mentioned something sad that happens, and I think I never finished the sentence. So something sad that happens, in my opinion, is that many people they fall in love with literature, and they either go uh, because they think literature is quantity, they either go to lots and lots of books, which will destroy his uh, taste for literature, and without realizing, they will they will little by little read a lot but have no literature. Just like a person, continuing that comparison I was making, just like a person who makes out with, I don't know, 10 people a week will never will not have contact with real love, because this is just not love. And what is even worse, the person falls in love with literature, and this is actually what happened to me. I fell in love with literature, and then I thought, well, I I want this life. I want this amount of life. So I will make a lot of effort and go to university. And then I got to a point in university that I realized that I was not reading literature anymore, at least not as I should be reading, because I had a lot of bureaucratic work, because I had to analyze literature. And by the way, this is when I decided to quit university and to dedicate to literature, right? Okay, but this is not the point of this video. This video is about passive and active imagination. There is something very interesting. Aristotle the philosopher, right? So we have Socrates, Plato, and then Aristotle, right? Aristotle used to say he didn't call imagination. A way to look at it, one of his theories, let's put it this way. He didn't call imagination, he didn't make this difference between imagination and memory. He made the difference between active and passive imagination. So keep that in mind, active and passive imagination. What is the active imagination? Active imagination. No, first we have to understand passive imagination. Passive imagination, for example, if you ask me if I know a tree, let's oak tree, right? Oak tree is a very big tree, all right, with a lot of leaves and etc. If you ask me what is an oak tree, I will imagine an oak tree in my head, and I will say, yeah, I know what an oak tree is, right? And this is what I call passive imagination. Why? Because one day I saw an oak tree, and that got, let's say, printed in my imagination. And now I have a passive imagination. So every time somebody tells me about a kangaroo, for example, I have seen many times on TV kangaroos, so I can get this and I know what the person is talking about. This is the passive imagination. Well, of course, you must be thinking, well, passive imagination is memory, right? And you are right. You are right. Passive imagination is memory. But there is a very interesting thing, a very nice profit we get by facing imagination as uh, as passive imagine by facing memory as passive imagination. Okay, I'll tell you in a moment. What is active imagination? Active imagination, imagine I ask you to imagine a purple elephant with stars instead of eyes. You know, I don't think it's difficult to do so, right? It's not difficult to imagine such an elephant. A purple elephant with stars instead of eyes, and instead of ears, this elephant has books. Pretty simple thing to do. And here comes the nice thing. It's nice to call both, just for our purposes of discussion here, it's nice to call both imagination, passive and active imagination, because it's actually the same process. So when I imagine a purple elephant with the book and the stars and etc., what do? I go to my memory. I get the picture uh, of course, I'm oversimplifying the process, but I get the picture of an elephant, and then I get the picture of stars, and then I put it here, and then I get pictures of books, and then I put on both sides, and then I made my elephant. All right. So actually, it's the same process, and that will will teach us a very important lesson. And this lesson is a lot of people when they want to read a book, they think, oh, I love books because they will make my imagination go so far. And they think imagination is just like going very far. If you want your imagination to be strong, you can't be just creating things in your head, because I can assure you, you cannot create anything in your head. Whatever you create, you will be getting aspects of things you have experienced. Whatever your active imagination does, it gets the material from your passive imagination. Or, in other words, better, whatever your imagination does actively, it's because it has a part that is passive. Okay? So that teaches us a very incredible, important lesson about reading. When we read, and if we want the story to be powerful, we have to get information. How do we get information? I don't know, simple thing. If you see, for example, the name of a flower, you go there actually to Google image, you look at the flower. If you can, and this, by doing this, you will make your imagination powerful and brilliant. If you can, you go one day and say, wow, but there's this house in my neighborhood, they have this flower. So you go there, you look at the flower closely, you smell the flower, you even feel the flower, right? And the beauty of the thing is, at that moment, the moment you are looking at the flower, the moment you are smelling the flower, the moment you are touching the flower, you are learning how to read. No? Because when an author, nowadays there is this horrible philosophy that says that literature is just books, it's just a structure, it's an intellectual structure. It's not, right? Good literature refers to reality. So if you read the book and you detach the book from reality, two things may happen. First, the book may be bad, and it's then you are just in the mind of a writer, and even though the writer is a genius, yeah, it's just a mind of a person. It's just a little game you are playing. Oh, in my universe there is this, like when you there are those cards kids like to use to play, like, oh, there is this power and this power, and then this card is very powerful because it's a god in a universe, and then there's a billion of power and etc. And you have like 5,000 of those cards. It's just little cards, just that, right? So if you read the book and the book is bad, you're just playing a game with somebody's mind. Now, if you take the effort and connect that book to reality, then that book will be life, as I told you in the previous video, right? And not only for a flower. And this is the interesting thing. Uh, I'm reading a book, for example, it happens very frequently with Machado de Assis, right? I'm reading a book, a passage of a person who fools himself because he's afraid of looking small, even to himself. And then I stop and try to find this flower. I start walking in the neighborhood of my memory, you know, my passive imagination. And then I remember, wow, I know a person who does exactly like that. Me, you know? So the book breaks the boundaries of the pages and extends to your life. This is the condition for getting life from the books, right? Uh, well, I just want to use. I don't know if it will work because I actually prepared this passage in Portuguese. Uh, I hope it works. Let me see. I just want to show you. If I can't in Portuguese, if I can't in English, we'll do it in Portuguese. Uh, just a sec. How am I going to do this? I wanted you to have the text. Okay. I think I got it. Okay. I want to read a passage from the Divine Comedy, and I want to show you something. So the passage is 37. So in this passage, as you might remember, we are in the fifth circle of hell. That is the circle of hell destined for people who, in the words of the book, they subjugate reason to appetite. They have sexual desire that is so strong. They had sexual desire that was so strong in life that they they paid more attention to that than uh, to reason. Oh, I think I'm sharing the wrong one. I think I'm sharing the Portuguese one. Let me try again. I can send the link of the Portuguese one as well, uh, because in the Portuguese one I connected many videos. I have the English one as well, but well, that's not the point. The point is, let's read this part here, right? So remember, in the fifth circle of hell, the idea is everything is completely dark. You can just hear, the souls, and you can feel a lot of wind, and actually the souls are flying around like a hurricane, and everybody's screaming. Everybody is, So you have this idea. So imagine this, right? You have this idea of people, going around in this very strong wind, very, very strong wind going around. Okay. And then we get to this part. Uh, the time. Okay, sorry. I am in Canto 1. It's Canto 5. I think now it's okay. I understood. Yes, 37. I understood that unto such a torment the carnal malefactors were condemned, who reason subjugate to appetite. This is what I told you. And now we have an image. And as the wings of starlings bear is carry. The starling, we are talking about a kind of bird. And as the wings of starlings bears them on in the cold season in large band and full, so doth here is thus. So doth the blessed the spirits maledict. In other words, just like the starlings are carrying by their wings during the winter, the souls here are carried by the by I said wing, right? The starlings are carried by their wing. The souls here are carried by the winds, just like the starlings. Okay. So remember the idea of passive and active imagination. So I have to imagine a lot of birds flying, and then I have to imagine the souls like those birds flying. I don't know about you, but for me, the first time I read it, my imagination was very imperfect because I was almost imagining the guys with wings. They were like singing, you know? It's like, ah, come on, this is not so bad. The image was not so impactful, right? Okay, I will continue. All right. It hither, thither, downward, upward drives them, no hope doth comfort them for evermore. Not of repose, but even of lesser pain. And as the cranes, which is another kind of bird, go chanting forth their lays, making in air a long line of themselves, so I saw, so saw I coming, so saw I coming, uttering lamentations. So I have to imagine all those souls like a band of starlings, and then I have to imagine another bird, crane, and then I have to imagine the crane singing, and then I have to imagine the cranes flying in the air, and then it's a lot of things to imagine, right? So let me see if I can find it. Just a sec. Let's now feed our imagination, okay? Let's feed our imagination. The first thing I want to do is to show you, just a sec, because I'm trying to do two things at the same time. We just want to see if I have all the material to show you. Okay, no, that's okay. So the first thing I want to show you is a small video, okay? This video I think will last like, I don't know, 5 minutes, but we're going to try to watch all of it. And remember, this is something important and something I forgot. What's the difference? You know, one important difference, going back to, not one important difference, one important comparison I want to make, going back to that idea of the three paths, right? Let's imagine movies, you know. You can watch movies just because you want to have fun, and this is fine. Again, I don't have anything against that. But then you tend to watch, people tend to watch more and more movies with more and more explosions and more fights and more, things that are explicit, that, get your attention like this, you know. And that's why some critics, called, one is a specific critic called, Arnaldo Jabor, called this pornographic cinema, because it has to show everything. So, for example, a fight, it has to show a very impactful fight, to catch your attention, right? So that's the danger of watching cinema just for fun, But on the other hand, you have those, those guys. I hate those guys. They want to talk about the symbology of the movie. No, because actually, if you analyze the deeper meaning of this movie and the way the camera was placed, connect with the scene that was in blue and etc., right? So again, we're talking about people who take that path and people who take that path. What is the path in the middle? The path in the middle is to watch movies with a lot of attention. I think for movies it's easier. Any movie, any movie. You will realize that many bad movies you can't watch. If you turn off your cell phone, if you don't talk to anybody, if it's just you and the movie paying full attention, you will realize that you can't watch the movie. Some movies are too bad, too repetitive. Of course, sometimes you have to improve your taste. And by the way, this is something we're going to do in the TC as well. I'm going to select one movie per week for students to watch, right? And then many occasions I see that people don't like certain movies that are not commercial, because they're not willing to give the movie full attention. So all a good movie asks full attention. This is very different. I don't understand what is happening. Okay, but I'll give it full attention. Well, this is just because it came to my head, and because we are going to do that with the movie. The movie is just 2 minutes long, but let's try to give it full attention, meaning let's try just to think about what we're seeing here, So let me see, I want you to watch it fully screen. So maybe if I stop the sharing here, I think it will be nice. Okay. Screen one, and let's. Okay, I think now it will work. Just see what you're seeing here. Yes, that's exactly what I want. Well, this is exactly what I wanted. Okay, so keep that in mind, keep that in mind. And then also, let me see if I can show you another thing. Okay. So now we are talking, remember, in the passage of the Divine Comedy was, and as the cranes go chanting forth their lays. So this is the chanting of a crane. Let's hear half of it. course, we could hear all of it, but I have one more to show you. Now we are talking about cranes again, but they are flying. Okay, now they are flying and okay, so I think that's enough. So thinking about literature, you know, look how difficult it is to learn how to read, you know, and how wonderful at the same time. When you read this passage I told you, and as the wings of starlings bear them home in the cold season in large bands and full, so doth that blast the spirit's maledict. It hither, thither, downward, upward drives them. No hope doth comfort them forevermore. Not of repose, but even of lesser pain. And as the cranes go chanting forth their lays, making in air a long line of themselves, so saw I coming, uttering lamentations. So in your mind, remember, from your passive imagination, now you have the unpredictable way the starlings move, you know, and you have this huge quantity. So from that video, from the starlings, you have to have this idea, and also maybe taking advantage of the video, this dark, you know, silence when it comes to other sounds except the screams. And then you have to get the chance of the cranes that, if you think about it, it sounds like a lamentation, the second video I showed you. And then the cranes flying, you know. So on top of that, so you got some aspects of those three experiences. On top of that, now you have to imagine people instead of birds. And you have to imagine that not only their cries are like the cries of cranes, but they also say stuff, but you have this lamentation. And then you have to put yourself right in the middle of all that, and you have to see them going around and going further and then coming closer to you, and you hear the despair and the pain and the screams, right? Well, of course, it's a horrible thing to imagine. It's a horrible thing. If you really take this task seriously, you know, if later on when you are, I don't know, thinking, if you remember the birds, if you remember the way they move, if you remember pain, if you remember that everything that is completely dark, if you remember that they will be there forever, right? I'm not talking about religion. It doesn't matter if you believe or don't believe. That's not the point. But the point is, you have an experience that is so strong that it can change your life. Not change your life in the meaning of course, from now on, I'm going to be a different person. But you won't be the same. That's the point. You won't be the same after having that experience, you know? And that's the way books should be read. They should cause such an impact on you that you won't be the same later on, you know, after that. Okay. And if we analyze the strength of an experience like that, then we know how to answer that question some people would ask us. Well, if you are not reading to write anything, if you are not reading to get a diploma, why do you make so much an effort? You know, why don't you just, oh, it's some birds flying and then continue? Then the answer is because I want this kind of experience. And then we can also understand how is it possible that a person that is 20 years old is experience like, or experience wise, 300 years old, because the person has seen people in hell, and that's an experience. Not everybody who has it, right? Or at least people suffering and going around in big bands just like starlings, right? So when I say that we have to learn how to read, and that I'm still learning how to read, people think reading is something we learn. I don't know. We learn in middle school. We have learned everything. No, we are still learning how to read. You know, and learning how to read requires. Besides that, let me give you another example. One of my students got to me and said, "Teacher, I have problems when the narrator describes the faces of people. You know, the narrator describes the face of people, and I, for me, okay, I understand, but I can't really see the faces that the narrator is describing." So my answer was, first of all, I congratulated my student. I said, congratulations, you are way ahead most of people. Why? Because you realize that descriptions on a page is not about words that I understand, I don't understand. Oh, I know what it means, this kind of knows, okay. No, it's supposed to give you an experience. It is supposed to give you an experience, right? So first of all, I congratulated her. Second, I told her, look, you have, before I give you a possible solution, I told her that you have to be careful because many writers don't see either. You know, many writers see other writers using descriptions and they want to use descriptions too, and they use descriptions, but they can't see it either, right? And how can you differentiate? Just by experience. By experience, you read a book and say, no, this is empty. This is empty. This person hasn't lived this. So, for example, uh, I know everybody likes Harry Potter, and I'm not against Harry Potter, but if you see the way Tolkien works with what is magic, what is, yeah, let's get this idea of magic. Tolkien has experienced magic. I don't know how much of it, but Tolkien has experienced magic. On the other hand, in Harry Potter, the woman there, I forgot her name, she had a lot of ideas about magic. In one case, it is connected to reality and it's deep. In the other case, well, it's fun. It's fun. Again, of course you can read for fun, but you have to have this sense of hierarchy, you know? So I told her that first of all, you have to set aside the author that is really connected to reality and he wants to show you a face, and the author who is not connected to reality. It doesn't matter how much I read Harry Potter, I won't have this idea of what magic is because the author doesn't. For the author, it's a game. So you put a lot of magic, then there's this spell, and this spell is stronger than that spell. This spell is going to make you go back to the past and kill this person, and etc. It's a game. It's a very fun game, but it's a game nonetheless, right? Now, if I read, for example, there is this book by Tolkien, right? Silmarillion. There is the first part of Silmarillion called Ainulindale. Ainulindale. That is like a Genesis, but in his mythological world. I know this guy has had a very deep experience, a spiritual experience, because if I read Ainulindale and start thinking about the creation and God and etc. and etc. and etc., I know there's something here. Again, I don't need to believe, right? But I know there's something here. I don't know if he got one aspect of the reality. This is just an allegorical way of showing something, but there is something here that's, it talks about my reality, you know? Uh, well, so going back again to the idea of faces. And then I told her, a reading exercise for you. A reading exercise for you would be go out on the street and start looking people in the face, you know? So then we learned that learning how to read is much broader than going to the dictionary. For her, in order to get the ability of reading certain passages, she has to get the ability to look at people, you know? Because usually when we look at people, we look in a different mode. We don't look in the mode of observation or admiration. We look in the mode of interaction. So for example, I'm looking at you. While I'm speaking, I'm paying attention to your facial expressions to see, for example, if you make a face like this, I know I have to repeat myself, you know? If you make a face like this, I know I am doing fine, and things like that. So we don't pay attention. We are just worried most of the time. We are worried about the message we are going to get from the facial expression, right? And then I told her, you have to learn how to look at people's faces, you know? And now imagine if, just the examples I gave you, if by reading a book, you have to go to your neighbor's house and look at the flower he has in front of his house. You have to deeply meditate about the times you fooled yourself, just like a character in Machado de Assis. You have to go to videos in YouTube, and we are so lucky, right? We have YouTube and Google Image and get aspects of a reality. You have to start looking at people at their faces, Of course, you will be a much more experienced person after you read many books, right? Of course, it's very easy to understand that, right? Well, I have gone very, very far regarding literature, but as I told you, I think this is the core of the course, the teacher's course. Um, Everything else is very important, but everything else will be connected to this. I'm going to open another video just to talk about, let's see what we can talk about. Yeah, just to talk about the structure of the credits. Let me end this one.